The markets are moving fast, and we've just seen some of the most turbulent news that we've seen in a long time. We know that Bitcoin has just triggered a major bearish pattern. Liquidations are stacking up, and global markets, well, they're spiraling right now. Tariffs, circuit breakers, panic in gold and bonds. It's hitting all at once. So today, we're unpacking exactly what's going on and why what you choose to believe right now really, really matters. Because we know global panic is spreading at breakneck speeds. And many would believe and say that the domino effect of this panic is toppling way faster than anyone could have expected. We have governments, traders, even central banks is scrambling to respond. We have money moving fast across different asset types. Volatility, of course, is exploding, and there's already talk of a once-in-a-decade opportunity. So in this episode, we're gonna break it all down. We'll cover both what's going on a macro level, as well as what's going on a technical crypto indicator level, and even emergency rate cuts. So without further ado, let's jump into today's data. Okay, so starting off with Bitcoin's chart, as we always do, we can see Bitcoin is at $76,750 some and fluctuating as of the time of this video. So this is not pleasant, of course, and we're not even looking at the beginning of market open day on the East Coast, which by the time my video launches, I know that we won't know, like the market could be down more from this point. Hopefully not, because we can expect, of course, some news and an address to the public from Trump. And we can also very likely, as I was alluding to in my intro, expect a statement of some sort from Jerome Powell on whether or not they will be cutting interest rates as a way of instigating the market to come back to life a bit. So we'll have to see, but just to give you guys some stats, we did have about $906 million liquidated in the crypto market just today. So these are very turbulent days, as was to be expected once again, but that doesn't take away from the sting, right? So hopefully none of you are, exposed towards longs or shorts in the market. And hopefully you've been following my channel and have just been holding on to your Bitcoin. And if you're holding good crypto tokens, then once again, you have nothing to be worried about. You just keep holding. And I know the AI sector right now, the magnificent, top 5 stocks are down, and many of them are heavy in AI, but that is part of a separate narrative. That doesn't mean the AI narrative is dead. That doesn't mean the fact we're seeing this chart with Bitcoin does not mean Bitcoin is dead. Does not mean the crypto market is dead. And if anything, what is going on right now in the world points towards the need of Bitcoin in the world. And this massive turning point that we are all experiencing at the same time. In my last video, I used the Titanic analogy, the captain seeing the iceberg ahead of time and course corrected. It would have been a huge dramatic shift for everyone on the boat to feel. And that is what we are experiencing right now as an American people, as as U.S. citizens, just the same, and in the same way that the rest of the world is also feeling the impact right now, which is not nice. I spent a lot of time over the weekend listening to business owners, being interviewed by the BBC and by other channels, talking about how these reciprocal taxes were going to affect their businesses. And it's quite complicated. Maybe I'll do a deep dive into it and how much the company absorbs of the export taxes into the US versus how much is passed on to the consumer. The whole amount of taxes to be imposed on other countries importing to the US, that whole amount does not go towards the end consumer. It's a portion of it, and the rest of it the company absorbs. So it is quite complicated, and I know there's a lot of talk in the market by top key opinion leaders in markets and in the economy regarding Trump's perspective on it, whether or not he cares about the stock market or he doesn't. There is and a lot of criticism on how these numbers were calculated, and that's also part of a larger conversation. But all in all, there is reasoning to the numbers that he chose, and we'll have to see. Just stay tuned till the end of the video, because I'll also share with you how many countries are now coming to the table. Immediately, these countries responded to the tariffs being imposed on their countries and wanted to enter into negotiation talks with the US. So there is a lot of momentum building behind the scenes. It's just not also evident, most immediately in the news and in the markets, unfortunately. And we can still foresee some more volatility, but things will straighten themselves out. So let's keep moving on. So as I was saying a moment ago, we had 906.29 million liquidated in the crypto market in the last 24 hours. And then as Ollie shares here, this is the signal I was talking about in my intro. I'm not a pro trader, and I don't know how many of you are, but if you are, then you would know this. And I thought I would share it just in case any of you guys are traders. But essentially, there's this signal, and it's called the death cross. And it basically is when the 50-day moving average dips below the 200-day moving average. And often when this happens, as you can see on the screen, it normally or typically precedes a downtrend in the market. Now, remember, this would be temporary, and all bull markets have corrections. So there you have it. Will it last? Will it be ongoing? I don't think so, because for the reasons I'll share here in a moment. So it's not an all doom and gloom video for you, but just a little bit more technical analysis for you just quickly. We have this post shared by Nick, the co-founder of Coin Bureau, who also talks about the fact that Bitcoin just opened up a massive CME gap. Now, CME stands for Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and it's an indicator a lot of traders use to give them an idea on how market sentiment is doing and whether the market will go up or down afterwards. And as of now, there's almost a $5,000 gap between where it closed and where it's opening. We'll have to see what happens from here, but this is where we are. And most likely the gap will not be filled, but we'll have to see what actually happens, because Monday is going to be brutal. Of course, today, Monday has been dubbed, Black Monday. So it was to be expected, guys. If you've been following my channel, you would know this. You would not be worried, because it's necessary. What's happening right now is necessary. So we'll have to see how quickly negotiations can be done, because we know Trump is a deal maker, and he even wrote a book on this, right? Like the art of deal making. So we know that he is looking for resolution. And basically what it comes down to is, you may have heard this in the news, because we had several countries come to the table and immediately, in response to President Trump's announcement of reciprocal taxes, come to the table and say, okay, we won't charge U.S. companies anything to export into our country. And Trump his response basically was like, that's not good enough. Okay, he didn't say those words, so don't quote me, but that's basically what he said. He doesn't like the fact that the U.S., and this deserves a whole deep dive, so let me know if you want me to do a deep dive into this topic, but he basically doesn't like that we are buying more from other countries than they are buying of American goods. So he calls that a deficit. Don't get that confused with a treasury deficit, with the country's deficit, okay? He's talking about trade specifically, like inflows and outflows of business. So he wants it to be even. He wants other countries to buy just as much of American goods as, we're buying from them. So, man, it's definitely a really intense negotiation request that he's asking. But remember that when you negotiate, you always ask for more in the beginning, so that when they come back and push back, you can lower it, and eventually you get to where you actually want it to be. But in order to get to where you want to get, you always have to ask for more in advance. So we can assume that's part of what's going on now. But what else is going on? So here's an article by Coinomist, and I won't read it all to you in detail, but basically what it says just reiterates the fact that Trump imposed a 10% tariff or tax across the board, and even higher for a very specific 185 countries. So of course this triggered a big risk off globally. Bitcoin dropped about 7%, as I was showing you a moment ago, sliding below $80,000. Ethereum even took a big hit, down 14%, close to $1,500. And of course, the whole crypto market went down about 60 billion in just hours. So we can expect China's response today, as it is Monday in the US. So we'll have to see what happens. Also, the response that Canada comes in with and the EU. So we'll have to see. But yeah, so here's just a summary for you of what's been going on. But on the positive side, and this is why you have to love President Trump, is just so attuned to PR, and PR moves the market. News moves the market. News signals fear or it signals confidence. And we know that business in general, that's what it comes down to. It's perception. It's as what's her name? I forget her name, but she wrote In This Economy, and she calls it a vibes session, a vibes economy. If people are feeling down, the market goes down. So what is amazing of President Trump is that he knows how to pair the good like with the bad and bad with the good. So we can expect some statements rolling out within the next 24 hours or so. And this article covers it in detail by Crypto Briefing. And long story short, I'll just tell you what it says, or I can just read it to you here. The key takeaways essentially are that the Fed agencies, so all the federal agencies, right, that have been seizing Bitcoin and crypto, and businesses that have been doing illicit business or illegal business, the U.S. is requiring that all federal agencies, so like the FBI, the CIA, and who knows which other agencies, to report how much Bitcoin and crypto they've been holding from their seizures. And they will be calculating this into the US's Bitcoin and crypto holdings. Because remember, now we have the Bitcoin strategic reserve and then the crypto stockpile of all the crypto tokens that the US holds. And they're going to be treated differently, of course. Like the Bitcoin reserve is not to be sold, and the crypto stockpile essentially is going to get managed like a portfolio, like an investment portfolio. So this is good news. Now, who knows if this news will be announced on how much all the federal agencies are holding to be aggregated to the total holdings of the US and Bitcoin and other top crypto tokens. But chances are, I think a rough estimate may be announced as a morale booster. Now, I may be wrong. This is purely my own speculation, but it would be very strategic news for the Trump administration to announce as a way of boosting the economy's morale, right? Because too much bad news can definitely hurt a market. So we'll have to see. And I remain optimistic that we will get some sort of good news regarding how much the US is holding. What else? What other good news could potentially roll out in the next few days as we continue in this trade war, which it rightfully so is right now? And don't think war in the sense of bombs and so forth, but battle, right? We're in a trade battle right now globally. So as shared here by the Bitcoin historian on X, you can see he says that VANECK, which is one of the big financial asset management companies, right, says that basically, let me just read. So 90 billion VANECK retaliation to Trump tariffs may accelerate government adoption of Bitcoin. So what is being said here in many words? What is being said here is that because the US dollar, as it is the currency of the US, is now up in the air, right? It's turbulent, right? Like the whole world is trying to protect their own and their own ego and their own trade, but also aware of the fact that everyone trades with each other. So everyone knows that they have to try to find a way of peacefully, like, figuring this out, negotiating their way out of this trade war situation with the US, because otherwise their economy is going to suffer. You know, as I've said in my past videos and as it's been said by Howard Lutnick, the US is the main consumer or purchaser of goods from the whole world. So the whole world does need to get on par with the US as fast as possible, or they're going to suffer really, really bad. You'll see in a moment, Japan is tanking, like so many countries' stock markets are suffering really bad. So with all of this turbulence, the real signal it's sending to investors all over the world is that, hey, maybe we should, exit this conversation and maybe we should invest in Bitcoin instead, because it's not tied to one government, it's not tied to the US, it's not tied to any one specific market. It's free, truly decentralized, it's independent, no one can shut it down, no one can touch it, right? And so that is what is actually being encouraged through all of this volatility in the market. So ultimately, it's a good thing for Bitcoin and the crypto market. But if we have to summarize it, this is what's going on, as was shared by Kobesi letter, is we have the stock market futures down 15% in 3 days. Oil prices trading below $60. Gold prices are down 180 in 2 sessions, right? Bond prices are skyrocketing, and the Magnificent 7 index is down 35%. So it's the Magnificent 7, not the Magnificent 5, as I said a moment ago. And these are basically like Microsoft, NVIDIA, Meta, companies like this, and they're all heavily AI related. That is why I was saying a moment ago, it's not over for AI. The Magnificent 7, we're already down. The top stocks in the market were already down before this whole tariff fiasco. That was in large part due to DeepSeek, a competitor to OpenAI or ChatGPT, that came to the market, produced by a fraction of what it took to create OpenAI. It really shook the traditional market as it relates to AI, because DeepSeek basically begged the question of, like, hey, maybe these market caps are overinflated. Maybe investors have been paying too much to these AI companies, because over here, China proved with DeepSeek that they can do it for a fraction of the price. So this is a part of a separate conversation. That's why I don't like it when people all mix it together, because separate events happened and triggered different parts of the market. And then, of course, tariffs, is not making it any better, but that's only for right now. We cannot be so short-sighted. It really bothers me when I hear different economists and market people talk about how it's like over and it's over, the market's ruined and it's a recession. No, it's not. It's not. Like, have they not been observing this government? This new administration moves very, very fast. It's unbelievable. Like, if you're in the news every day, unbelievable what has been accomplished already in this economy and in this like for our nation, for the US and for the world in large part, because the effect trickles down. So yes, it's very turbulent what we're seeing right now, but is it going to last? No, it's not. It's not. So anyway, market sentiment is down. We know this. We can expect more volatility. Just remember that. And then, of course, as is shared here by Bravo's research on X, we know that the stock market wiped out essentially 1 year's worth of gains in 45 days. But a lot of it was inevitable. It was inevitable and needed. And yes, it's sad. And yes, I feel bad for anyone who has stocks that are down right now, but they're not going to remain down. They're not going to remain down. And we had to course correct, or it was just like this, it was going to be a snowball effect continuing on. So had to happen. We can see here, as shared by bar chart, Asian stocks are also down, and they're on track for the biggest decline since the global crisis. You can see it here on the chart. What else? And you can see here, as shared by Unusual Whales on X, these are the markets that hit circuit breakers today. So they basically stopped shorting. They stopped people from shorting the market. We have like China, Taiwan, Japan, Russell futures, Australia, and Singapore. And then the VIX, as you can see here, is up 14.62%. So what is the VIX? The VIX basically measures volatility in the market. And this is actually indirectly good. Here, it's of course a signal of panic selling and forced liquidations. And then, of course, when the VIX spikes above 50, which we're not there yet, it's a signal of extreme fear. But we know already we're facing extreme fear in the market. But mind you, it's not scaring the biggest investors in the world. Like they're still buying Bitcoin. You're going to see here in a moment, gold is up at an all-time high. And we know that Bitcoin follows gold. So we can expect Bitcoin to be pumping. That's why I wasn't too worried with the death cross either, because you have to just see what news is coming down the pipeline that may affect the chart. So as you can see here, this is what I was saying a moment ago. Technically, the fact that the volatility index, the VIX, is up right now is technically an indirect bullish signal, because as you can see here, as shared by Ryan, when the VIX is above 50, it basically puts the Fed in a position of having to cut interest rates. So that's why I was saying a moment ago, we can expect a statement from Jerome Powell today, something, because they have to protect the market. But just quickly, you can see here, as shared by Marty Party as well, that the US 6-month Treasury yield is down to 3.9%. And this is a clear signal, of course, that prices are now pricing in an aggressive Fed rate cut, as I was saying a moment ago. And this is part of that flight to safety dynamic we're seeing across the board. So we'll have to follow the VIX indicator, but as you can see here, as shared by Arthur Hayes, let me just read what he says. He says, if you're trying to predict when the Fed caves and goes burr, when they start printing money to help the market, right, and cut interest rates to help instigate more business, he says, if you want to know when they're going to wake up and start helping the market, he says, watch the bonds volume move index. As it goes higher, anyone doing financial treasury or corporate bond trades will be forced to sell by higher margins requirements. These are the two markets the Fed will defend to death above 140. So basically what this tells us is that chances are, and you can see this right now on POLYMARKET as well, chances are quite high that Jerome Powell is going to be forced to cut interest rates. So there you go. You see, POLYMARKET, 26% chance that the Fed will have to cut rates. So we'll see. Today is such a huge day in the US. So I will be here tomorrow to cover what is going on with you. So please like and subscribe if this information is valuable to you. But moving on, as shared here by the JPEG curator, you can see that volatility in bonds is surging, and there's a growing risk of forced selling in both treasuries and corporate bonds. So yeah, and as you can see, this is what I was telling you a moment ago, gold is up. Isn't that interesting? Because it's a hedge of protection. It's a hedge against inflation. It's a hedge against uncertainty in the market. So investors, when they see the stock market tanking and they see the war in Russia and Ukraine has not been resolved, and oh my gosh, we're waiting on all these announcements from other countries retaliating with their taxes, they're going to take their money out of the stock market, as we've seen has happened, and they're going to put it into gold. And here shortly after comes Bitcoin. Just watch and see. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's technically a good thing for Bitcoin and the crypto market. And then this article is loaded. It's very interesting. It's shared by Cryptopolitan. And as you can see here, the title says, multiple countries pledge zero tariff talks while Howard Lutnick rules out tariff delay. So it's really loaded. You have Taiwan and Zimbabwe are pledging zero tariff agreements. Yeah, it's really, really quite loaded. But basically, it shows a big rush back to hard assets. Fear really takes hold in the market. And we have over 50, that's what's covered in this article. We have over 50 countries that have already reached out to the US over the tariff situation, pushing for zero tariff talks to ease tensions. But of course, this is what I was saying earlier, what Trump really wants is he wants the US to be importing into their countries as much as they are exporting into America. He wants it to be even. Now keep in mind that is what he's saying. Many people say he plays 3D chess. I think he is asking for what he's saying, but you have to remember that he's a deal maker. So that means that there's somewhere in the middle that he's most likely trying to get to, but he has to go out asking for everything in order to be met in the middle. So we will have to just follow the market closely. You'll have to tune into my channel every day if you want, as I'll be covering this in detail as well, just to let you know what's going on and covering details as they unfold and giving you my educated opinion backed by research, of course, so you can make up your own mind. But the point is, as long as you're holding Bitcoin and as long as you're holding top crypto blue chip tokens, you have nothing to worry about right now. Just keep working, keep taking care of your family, try not to spend frivolously, make sure that you have some savings put aside so that you never know. But I do believe the market is going to turn around sooner, much sooner than everyone is, freaking out about right now. It was just necessary. That's all I can say. And I do see very bright days ahead, and I will be personally excited to wake up tomorrow to see what is happening next. I think we can foresee many countries coming to the table tomorrow. I will be here to share that with you. And in the meantime, just take care, stay steady, and I love you very much. And I will be back here tomorrow.